What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. So I wanted to touch on this. If you watched my previous video, yesterday I worked. After that, I went to see Hugh Jackman, the Wolverine. So I didn't even get to catch all the fights to this point. I still haven't seen the Figueroa fight. I seen Keith Thurman versus Diego Chavez, and then I also seen Andre Berto versus Jesus Soto Caras. Excellent fight card. Golden Boy is definitely doing their thing. Even the smaller cards like yesterday night, action packed, great fights. There were no real duds to me on that particular fight card. So we've seen some excellent, even lower budget fight cards. I want to spend some time talking about Keith Thurman, talking about his future, and also talking about his fight yesterday. So this is the Keith Thurman What's Next. I've said it previous times in previous videos. I know he was on the undercard for Bernard Hopkins versus Tavoris Cloud. He fought on that. He fought Zevek, who gave Andre Berto all he can handle. And Keith Thurman beat him in a dominant fashion. He wasn't able to knock him out. And I thought that was a stern test for him. Just a seasoned fighter with a chin. And it proves something to the fighter. It proves the fact that you can have all the power in the world, but there's some guys you just cannot get out of there. I mean, they can take a beating, they can take punishment. And Zevek was that on that night. I didn't really recall giving him any rounds. I thought Keith Thurman was definitely superior and dominant, but he still couldn't pull the trigger in terms of getting him out of there. And I think that's a valuable lesson for a young prospect, a young fighter to learn. As much as you want to excite, as much as you want to entertain, there are some people that you cannot get out of there. Even more so, there's some people that remain dangerous throughout the fight. So you don't always want to go that route of overextending yourself to try to knock them out, because that's where you yourself can get knocked out. I think most recently the biggest example of that is Pacquiao versus Marquez Part 4. Marquez obviously had his man hurt. He was up on the scorecards, on the official judges' scorecards, but he got too overconfident. He got too, basically, he just got too overconfident and he got too reckless, thinking that he had Marquez hurt and he was trying to do away with him. So you've seen how that fight ended. Pacquiao ended up obviously losing that round. All the work he did in round 5 and 6 went out the window. So Keith Thurman, I think that's a valuable lesson, fights like that. Yesterday's fight, definitely a valuable lesson. Diego Chavez, because this was the first opponent that I remember who was more or less in his prime, who was also undefeated and had power himself to rival his own, and just overall good boxing skill. Diego Chavez did a lot of things right. Early on, I think Diego Chavez stole a lot of the early rounds. He was using a jab. He was landing some accurate combination punches, and you could tell the guy had power. He was moving Keith Thurman back. If you have a fighter with power like Keith Thurman, their natural instinct is to overpower and just walk their opponent down. He clearly had to use boxing in spots, and when he had him hurt, Keith Thurman was able to do away with him in the 10th round. But it wasn't a situation where he could just walk him down and not respect Diego Chavez's boxing and, most importantly, Diego Chavez's power. So that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people analyze when they watch fights nowadays. They're power happy. They see a fighter with all the power in the world, and they think they're just going to be able to walk through other people's shots. And I think Lucas Matisse, Danny Garcia is in a similar boat. Lucas Matisse has a chance to win for sure. It's a 50-50 fight to me, though, because Danny Garcia has power as himself, and Lucas Matisse, I think, is going to have to respect that. Lucas Matisse versus Lamont Peterson. Peterson is a great fighter, but Peterson doesn't have the type of pop and crack on his punches that Danny Garcia has. So he was able to eat whatever Peterson was dishing out to land his own punches. But I think Danny Garcia is sneakier, like with his left hook, and I think he has more power than a person like Lamont Peterson. So Matisse is going to want to be a little bit more cautious. He's not going to just be able to bum rush him and walk through Danny Garcia's punches without taking some big shots himself. So Keith Thurman, Diego Chavez, it was a hell of a bout. I liked it. I hadn't really seen much of Diego Chavez's performance. I just read up on him, knew he was undefeated. He has a high KO ratio. Based on his performance yesterday, I would definitely, even with the loss, like to see him again. I think he gives a tough test to really anybody, like not named Mayweather. He shows that he's a pretty solid fighter all around. I'm not gonna say he's elite or anything like that based on one performance, but he definitely is a tough customer. It looks like he has a chin. He was taking some big shots from Keith Thurman, and I think this is also the type of fight that Keith Thurman needs to let him know that there's both sides of the spectrum. Like, even though you have power, there's other people with power too. As you can see early in the fight, Diego Chavez busted Keith Thurman's nose, and it was really good to see Keith Thurman remain patient and remain composed and get back to more boxing. And sometimes you have fighters with power and they do a lot of things wrong. They rely too much on the power. Keith Thurman settled down. He was having a slugfest, and he wasn't really winning the slugfest. It was pretty evenly matched. If not, Diego Chavez stole a lot of those rounds. So he settled in. He stayed composed, even with the they said his nose was broke. I don't think it was broke, but his nose was leaking. And he settled down and got to boxing, and he waited for the knockout to come when it came. And again, in the sport of boxing, when you're dealing with solid competitors, not journeymen, not taxi cab drivers, nothing like that, but when you're dealing with tough, stiff competition, you can't force a knockout. That's how you get knocked out in turn. You have to wait for it to happen. And I think Keith Thurman, in the middle rounds, mid to late rounds, he settled in. He started going back to his boxing basics. Didn't get in so many exchanges. Landed some beautiful hooks to the body. He landed some stuff upstairs. And then when the opportunity presented itself in round 10, he was able to get his man out of there. This was all set up by the previous round, a vicious, vicious body shot in transition where Diego Chavez looked like he was probably relaxed, and he was actually doing some kind of lateral movement, and he got caught with just a vicious body shot that put him down on one knee, and I don't think he fully recovered from that in the next round. Keith Thurman came out with bad intentions in the 10th round and was able to put him away right after the round started. So props to Keith Thurman. It's really good to see a young prospect with power making some of the right decisions, fighting smart, making adjustments on the fly, not relying solely on his power. He shows that he has some boxing ability too, and he's a work in progress, and that's what you expect. He also shows that he has a pretty solid chin to this point. Everyone they faced him with, it looks like his chin is holding up pretty well. It looks like this fight was the fight that I could recall out of the Quintana fight and Zavik and all the recent fights that I've seen with Thurman, where he actually looked like he was getting buzzed and affected more so and more often against Diego Chavez than really a lot of the other competitors I've seen him in with. So it was a good, solid test. Definitely, I'm sure it was a confidence builder for Keith Thurman to take someone's O away. Undefeated fighter. Again, I would definitely like to see Diego Chavez again. Keith Thurman, he's not the most fundamental. Sometimes he exchanges more than he wants or more than he should. Sometimes he's a little bit reckless, but he's exciting. I mean, he comes into these fights with bad intentions. You could tell he wants to impress. He seems like a supreme competitor. And what I mean by that is just someone with a driving passion to want to get to the top, the upper echelon of his division. I mean, the guy looks like he doesn't want to be denied. He looks like he's a very competitive person. All great things. He also has a personality that's going to help him sell. He talks shit. I mean, he has a lisp, but he still talks shit, does the trash talk. He's confident in his abilities, his skill, and he feels he's been put in this position to prove something. So there's a lot of great matches that could be made with him. He just needs to stay disciplined, keep training hard, and keep learning on the job. And that's basically what he's doing. And never underestimate opponents. And I haven't really seen him do certain things that I've seen other fighters do with power that are young. So that's good. That's really all I got to say about Keith Thurman. I'm just anxious to see him continue and see where he ends up. Let me know what you guys think of Keith Thurman. Is he the real deal? Who do you want to see him match with? Following this video, I have another video with Keith Thurman, and it's some matches that I particularly like and would like to see. He was supposed to fight Maidana. That fight was canceled. I believe Maidana pulled out and went on to fight someone else. But stay tuned for Keith Thurman versus on my channel, and I'll give you some matches that I personally want to see. That's really all I got to say. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video's Ego signing off.